The global economic stage is set for a complex drama. The United States and China, two economic titans, find themselves entangled. Their relationship is marked by escalating trade and currency tensions. These tensions cast a long shadow over international commerce and stability. We are witnessing a period of profound uncertainty. The old rules of global trade seem to be rapidly changing. This shift brings both risks and perhaps unforeseen opportunities. The world watches with bated breath. Recently, a glimmer of hope emerged from the strained dialogue. On May 12, 2025, an unexpected tariff truce was announced. This agreement saw US tariffs on many Chinese imports set to fall. They would drop from a staggering 145% down to 30%. China, in turn, agreed to lower its tariffs on US goods. These were to decrease from 125% to a more manageable 10%. This development was broadly welcomed by global markets. Many hoped for a significant rebound in trade volumes. The truce also included a commitment from Beijing. China agreed to halt its non-tariff countermeasures for now. This includes restrictions on critical mineral exports. An initial 90-day suspension of some tariffs is in place. Talks are ongoing for a potential extension of this period. Companies like Merck have already responded positively. They have removed surcharges previously applied to their China orders. This signals some immediate relief. However, it is crucial to view this truce with caution. The deep-seated issues that fueled this trade war have not vanished. The tariff trap, as some call it, remains a potent threat. The truce might be a temporary pause, a strategic maneuver. It may not signify a true resolution to the underlying disputes. The fundamental disagreements over trade practices, intellectual property, and geopolitical influence persist. The path ahead is still fraught with potential pitfalls for all. Gap 1S. Before we dive into this unfolding economic storm between the US and China, where currencies may collapse, prices could soar, and global power hangs in the balance, do me a favor, smash that like button. If you care about the truth behind the headlines, drop a comment below and tell me, can America survive another trade war? And if you want more raw, unfiltered analysis like this, subscribe now and join the few who still question everything. This isn't just news, this is the front line of a financial war. Let's get into it. The stage is set for a dramatic showdown. The truce, while offering a momentary reprieve, is merely a prelude to the larger battle at hand. The economic strategies of both nations are evolving rapidly. Each side is fortifying its position, preparing for what may come next. The stakes have never been higher. As we delve deeper, we will uncover the layers of this complex conflict. We will explore the policies, the posturing, and the profound implications for the global economy. Stay with us as we navigate through this intricate web of economic warfare. Former President Donald Trump's approach to trade has been central to this conflict. His policies have been characterized by an assertive, often confrontational stance. This is particularly true regarding China, which he has long accused of unfair practices. His administration implemented significant tariff hikes. The effective global tariff rate under his leadership reached 13.1%. This was reportedly 6 times higher than when he first entered office. Such figures underscore a dramatic shift. Even before the most recent May 2025 truce, there were previous attempts at de-escalation. After one such Chinese truce, US tariffs on certain Chinese goods remained high at 31%. The trade war itself began in early 2018. It saw tariffs of up to 25% phased in. These were applied to roughly half of all Chinese goods shipped to the US. This marked a significant departure from decades of US trade policy. It signaled a new era of protectionism for America. As recently as January 2025, when he was president-elect, reports suggested further escalations. There were plans to potentially increase tariffs on all Chinese goods. The figure mentioned was a staggering 60%. This would have begun with a 10% hike on Inauguration Day. Many market observers viewed these announcements as bargaining tactics. They believed these were tools to gain leverage in negotiations, yet the rhetoric itself contributed to market volatility globally. Trump's motivations appear multifaceted. They likely combine a genuine belief in protectionist measures with a desire to project strength. He aims to address perceived trade imbalances and protect American industries. Some suggest his assertive stance is also influenced by a desire to counter certain media narratives. Regardless of the precise drivers, the impact of his tariff doctrine has been profound. It has reshaped global supply chains and international economic relations. One of the most immediate and palpable consequences of tariffs is inflation. This is especially true for a net importer like the United States. Experts, including those from the Brookings Institution, have consistently argued this point. Tariffs are, in essence, a tax on imported goods. This tax is often passed down from businesses to consumers. The result is higher prices for a wide array of products. This impacts household budgets across the nation. Despite clear evidence, the Trump administration has offered a different narrative. Treasury Secretary Besson, for instance, has asserted that inflation is under control. He has also stated that prices are coming down. Such statements stand in stark contrast to the experiences of many Americans. They also clash with data from retailers and economic analysts. The disconnect between official rhetoric and economic reality is a growing concern. It creates confusion and uncertainty for many. Major retailers like Walmart provide concrete examples of this inflationary pressure. The company has reportedly begun passing tariff costs directly to consumers. Price hikes of 10%, 20%, and even 30% have been observed. These increases apply to various items, from electronics to household goods. When a retail giant like Walmart raises prices, it signals a broader trend. It shows that the costs of tariffs are not being absorbed by foreign exporters alone. This inflationary squeeze directly affects American families. The rising cost of living erodes purchasing power. It makes it harder for people to afford essential goods and services. For low- and middle-income households, this impact is particularly severe. They spend a larger portion of their income on everyday necessities. The tariff-induced inflation thus exacerbates economic inequalities. It adds another layer of financial stress for many vulnerable citizens. China has not passively accepted the US tariff measures. Beijing has consistently voiced its objections to American trade policies. Chinese officials have accused the US of violating international trade agreements. They have also stated that China will take resolute and forceful measures. These measures are intended to protect its national interests and economic sovereignty. This rhetoric signals a willingness to engage in sustained economic confrontation if necessary. Beyond retaliatory tariffs, China possesses significant leverage in other areas. Its most potent weapon is perhaps its dominance in rare earth elements. These minerals are critical for a wide range of modern technologies. This includes smartphones, electric vehicles, and advanced military hardware. China controls over 90% of the world's supply of high-performance rare earth magnets. It also refines approximately 99% of these crucial materials. This is a strategic vulnerability. The United States, in stark contrast, has virtually no refining capacity for rare earths. This dependence creates a significant strategic vulnerability for American industries. If China were to restrict exports, it could severely disrupt US manufacturing. It could also hamper technological advancement in key sectors. China has already enacted laws to counter foreign sanctions. These include provisions for blacklisting companies and controlling rare earth exports. These laws provide a legal framework. Although the May 2025 truce saw China agree to halt some non-tariff countermeasures, the underlying capability remains. The threat of leveraging rare earth exports is a powerful card in China's hand. This strategic control over essential resources gives Beijing considerable bargaining power. It complicates the trade calculus for Washington significantly. The US must consider this factor in its long-term strategy. It cannot afford to ignore this stark reality. Ripple effects, commodity surges, and a weakening dollar. The trade war's impact extends far beyond direct tariffs. We are seeing significant ripple effects across the global economy. One major concern is the rise in global commodity prices. Copper, a key industrial metal, is up by 4%. Oil and gas prices have increased by 6%. Even agricultural staples like wheat and corn are seeing upward price pressure. These commodities are essential for the US supply chain. Their rising costs contribute to broader inflation. This surge in commodity prices is not occurring in a vacuum. It combines with the inflationary effects of tariffs. It also interacts with significant government spending. For instance, anticipations around Trump's spending bill have raised fears. Economists worry about a potential deficit tsunami. This confluence of factors is fueling concerns about structural inflation. This type of inflation is more persistent and harder to control. It poses a long-term risk. Simultaneously, the US dollar has been under pressure. It has reportedly fallen by 10% since January 2025. This decline erodes the value of US assets. It also increases the cost of imports for American consumers and businesses. A weaker dollar can make exports cheaper. However, in the current high inflation environment, its negative effects are more pronounced. It further fuels the inflationary fire. Major financial institutions are taking note of these trends. JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley have reportedly been shorting the dollar. Morgan Stanley has gone as far as predicting a crash. They see the dollar potentially falling to pandemic-era lows within the next 12 months. They are recommending moves into other currencies. These include the Japanese yen, the euro, and the Australian dollar. Meanwhile, gold prices are climbing, reportedly towards $3,400 an ounce. This reflects deep global economic uncertainty. Inflation trumps rate cuts. The Federal Reserve, America's central bank, finds itself in a difficult position. Normally, in the face of economic headwinds, the Fed might consider cutting interest rates. Lower rates can stimulate borrowing and investment, boosting economic activity. However, the current inflationary environment severely constrains its options. The Fed is reportedly unable to implement rate cuts at this time. This limits its ability to respond effectively. The primary reason for this policy paralysis is clear. Prevailing inflationary pressures driven by tariffs and rising commodity prices are too high. Cutting interest rates now could risk fueling inflation even further. This would undermine the Fed's core mandate of maintaining price stability. The central bank must therefore prioritize reining in inflation. This task becomes much harder when fiscal policy, like tariffs, works in the opposite direction. It creates a policy conflict. Economic instability, exacerbated by the trade war, also plays a role. The uncertainty surrounding future trade policies and their economic impact makes forecasting difficult. This encourages a cautious stance from the Federal Reserve. Abrupt policy shifts in such an unpredictable environment could have unintended consequences. They might destabilize financial markets further. The Fed must navigate these turbulent waters carefully. This situation effectively limits the tools available to policymakers. If the trade war leads to a more significant economic slowdown, the Fed will have less room to maneuver. Its traditional response of monetary easing is largely off the table. This highlights the dangers of relying too heavily on one set of policy tools. It also underscores the interconnectedness of trade policy, fiscal policy, and monetary policy. They must work in harmony, not at cross purposes. Expert Lens, Jamie Dimon on China's resolve and global realities. Gaining insights from seasoned financial leaders is crucial in these times. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Chase, recently offered his perspective. After a visit to Shanghai, his observations provided a sobering assessment of China's position. Dimon noted that China is not scared by the ongoing trade tensions. This suggests a level of confidence and preparedness within the Chinese leadership. They are ready for a prolonged period of economic jostling. Dimon highlighted China's formidable capacity for problem-solving. He mentioned their ability to deploy vast resources, quipping they can put 100,000 engineers on a problem. This illustrates the scale and efficiency with which China can address economic challenges. It also points to their long-term strategic planning. They are not just reacting to immediate pressures. They are actively shaping their economic future despite external disruptions. This is a key understanding. Furthermore, Dimon suggested that China is unlikely to sign formal, binding agreements. This is particularly true in the current highly charged climate. Instead, Beijing may prefer in-principle deals. These are less rigid and allow for more flexibility. This preference could make lasting resolutions to trade disputes more elusive. It implies a continuous process of negotiation and adjustment. There may be no single grand bargain. These insights from a global financial leader underscore the complexities involved. They paint a picture of a resilient and strategically astute China. This is a China that is prepared to weather the storm of trade disputes. It also suggests that the path to a stable US-China economic relationship will be long. It will require patience, nuanced diplomacy, and a realistic understanding of each other's capabilities and intentions. Simple solutions are unlikely to emerge. The reshoring mirage and deeper economic perils. There has been much discussion about reshoring manufacturing to the United States. The idea is to bring jobs and production capacity back home. This is often presented as a solution to trade imbalances and supply chain vulnerabilities. However, the practical challenges of large-scale reshoring are immense. The US faces a significant lack of domestic raw materials for many industries. This is a fundamental hurdle to overcome. Beyond raw materials, there are other critical gaps. The US lacks sufficient refining capacity, especially for vital materials like rare earth elements. As discussed, China dominates this area. Rebuilding such capacity would require massive investment and take many years. Infrastructure, more broadly, also needs significant upgrades to support a manufacturing renaissance. These are not quick fixes. They demand long-term commitment and substantial resources. Even if reshoring efforts were successful, they might not yield the desired outcomes. The reality is that new manufacturing facilities would likely be highly automated. This means they might not create the large number of jobs that some anticipate. Furthermore, producing goods domestically without the economies of scale found elsewhere could lead to permanently higher consumer prices. This would add to the inflationary pressures already present in the economy. Beyond these challenges, deeper economic perils loom. The combination of tariffs and substantial government spending is fueling fears of structural inflation. This is a persistent rise in prices that becomes embedded in the economy. Moreover, a significant risk remains regarding China's vast holdings of US debt. If Beijing were to decide to dump these holdings, it could trigger a US Treasury market implosion. This would have catastrophic consequences for the US and global financial system. Navigating the precipice, the dollar's final warning and paths forward. The current trajectory of US-China trade relations presents a serious challenge. The escalating tensions and the tariff trap pose a significant threat. They threaten not only the American economy but also the global financial order. The US dollar's recent decline is a stark warning sign. Its status as the world's primary reserve currency could be increasingly questioned if these trends continue. This has profound implications for American power and influence. The United States faces a difficult dilemma. It can allow tariff-driven price hikes to continue, risking mass inflation. This would erode living standards and potentially trigger social unrest. Alternatively, it could consider imposing price controls. However, such measures often lead to shortages and black markets. They distort economic activity and rarely solve underlying problems effectively. Neither option is attractive. Both carry substantial economic risks. Many economists and international observers agree on a primary path forward. The most effective way to avert further economic damage is to end the trade war. This requires a commitment to de-escalation and constructive dialogue. It means finding common ground and addressing legitimate grievances through negotiation, not unilateral actions. The recent May 2025 truce offers a small window of opportunity. This chance must be seized upon. However, the risk of further escalation remains very real. Discussions about potentially revoking China's permanent normal trade relations (PNTR) status circulate. Such a move would represent a drastic intensification of the trade conflict. It would likely lead to even higher inflation and significant economic decline. The stakes are incredibly high. The choices made now will shape the economic landscape for years, perhaps decades to come. Prudence and a search for stability are urgently needed.